we're nearing the end of our run, and to write this episode, which is really about the history of emergency medicine, kind of completes the circle and brings it back to the pilot, when Bill Macy's character, Dr. Morgenstern, was the head of the emergency room. One of my motivations for writing this episode was to pay homage to the 40-year history of emergency medicine. Emergency medicine started as a specialty in 1968. In 1968, there was no 911, there were no paramedics, there was no formal training for physicians in emergency medicine. When you went to an ER, you might get a moonlighting dermatologist or a psychiatrist or a impaired physician or an intern who had no training at all. So a group of very dedicated physicians formed the specialty in 1968, and they were a group of people that Bill Macy's character would have known. So in a sense, he's bridging the gap between the present doctors and the origins of the specialty, and as a tribal elder is able to gather them and tell them the story of their heritage. As the character Oliver Costin, the 80-year-old man, lies dying, Bill Macy's character tells the story of how he started the specialty of emergency medicine, and in fact is responsible for all of our characters being here and for this place being here. He's kind of an amalgam of about 20 individuals all around the country who started the specialty. It really goes back to Korea and Vietnam, that emergency medicine, the doctors who worked in the war setting, in the combat setting, realized that lives were being saved immediately in the field, whereas, as they said, you have a better chance of surviving a gunshot wound in Vietnam than you do a car crash in Chicago. When someone needed an ambulance, you'd call a funeral home, and they'd bring you to the hospital in a hearse, or you'd be thrown in the back of a police car with no field care and be brought. So people were dying unnecessarily, and all that's changed because of people like the character that we've created for this episode. The character Oliver suffers from dementia, and through his eyes he thinks it's 1968. So when he looks around the ER, he sees the ER as it appeared in 1968. So we've actually built an entire replica of our ER on another soundstage that has period light fixtures, instruments, gurneys of the period, and our characters will appear in costume and hairstyles from 1968. And you might see some beaten up demonstrators from the Democratic National Convention, which was in 1968, when at the time of the police riot. So it all gets put back into this historic context. So basically we've done a lot of research, historic photographs of what doctors and nurses looked like in 1968. We looked at a lot of old television shows from 1968, and we're trying to capture the spirit. We're trying to capture the look of the hair. The nurses, of course, all wore those white caps, so you'll see that. You'll see, syringes that are made out of glass and metal instead of plastic the way they are today. You're going to see old heart monitors that look like oscilloscopes. So everything is of the period, and trying to make it as accurate as possible. It's kind of like the circle of ER is coming back to its roots, to its origin. Mimi is a fabulous director. She directed some of the classic, wonderful ER episodes, episodes that won Emmy Awards. And Bill Macy was here from the start as kind of the glue, the senior authority figure who was running the place. Bill's an amazing actor. This performance of his doesn't require as much of a technical surgeon as it does a very emotional story about a man who profoundly changed his life and changed the lives of everyone around him.